My name is Janet Morrison, and I'm 47 years old. For 23 years, I was a high school math teacher. My twins, Kyle and Kira, never paid attention to what I did beyond mom teaches algebra to teenagers. Last month, they learned that sometimes the biggest lessons happen outside the classroom, and that underestimating your mother is always a miscalculation. I'd raised the twins mostly alone since they were 8. Their father, Direct, had decided that family life was stifling his potential and moved to California to find himself. He found a 25-year-old yoga instructor instead, but still managed to video call the kids twice a month and send the legally mandated child support when he remembered. For years, I stretched every dollar. Teacher salaries aren't generous, and raising 2 kids on one income meant creative budgeting. Thrift store clothes that I'd alter to look designer. Homemade birthday cakes instead of bakery ones. Staycations instead of Disney World. The twins never went without necessities, but luxuries were rare. Why can't we get the new PlayStation like everyone else? Kyle would complain. Because everyone else doesn't have a single mom teaching school, Kira would answer, rolling her eyes. Right, Mom. Teachers basically make minimum wage. I'd bite my tongue and agree. It was easier than explaining that teachers make more than minimum wage but less than a living wage, and that I'd rather save for their college than buy gaming systems. They grew up believing we were one step above poverty. It became part of their identity, the twins with the teacher mom who couldn't afford the good cleats or the spring break trips. They weren't cruel about it, just dismissive. Embarrassed sometimes. Mom's dedication to education is admirable, Kira once told her friends while I was driving them to a debate tournament. But financially? Thank God we're smart enough for scholarships. What they didn't know was that I'd been taking night classes for years, earning my administrative credentials, then my superintendent license. While they thought I was grading papers in my bedroom, I was completing dissertations and leadership certifications. 6 months ago, everything changed. Dr. Patricia Williams, our district superintendent, was retiring. The school board approached me quietly. "Janet, you've transformed every school you've worked in," the board president said. "Your test scores, your teacher retention rates, your student satisfaction numbers, they're unprecedented. We'd like you to apply." "The other candidates have decades of administrative experience," I pointed out. "And you have decades of classroom experience. You know what teachers actually need because you've been one." I applied. I interviewed. I got the job. Superintendent of the Riverside County School District. Salary, $400,000 plus benefits. The day I signed the contract, I sat in my car and cried. Not just because of the money, though financial security after years of stretching pennies felt surreal, but because I'd earned it. Every late night, every difficult parent, every troubled student I'd refused to give up on had led to this moment. I didn't tell the twins. They were seniors, absorbed in college applications in their own lives. I moved to the district office quietly, letting them believe I'd just changed schools. They never asked for details. Mom was still just a teacher in their minds. "At least you have summers off," Kyle said when I mentioned working through June. "Teacher perks, right?" I started saving immediately. After taxes, benefits, and our regular expenses, I was banking almost $15,000 a month. College funds for both twins, fully funded in 6 months. A house fund because our rental was getting shabby. An emergency fund because I'd learned never to feel too secure. But I kept living exactly as we always had. Same 10-year-old Honda, same thrift store shopping trips, same homemade dinners. I wanted the twins to understand the value of money before they learned we had it. The revelation came on a Thursday evening. The twins were in the living room, supposedly doing homework. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard Kyle's phone ring. "Hey, Dad," he said, putting it on speaker so Kira could hear. They often did this. Direct preferred efficiency in his parenting. "Kids, how's senior year treating you?" But Kira said, "Just stressed about college." "Which colleges are we looking at?" Derek used we like he'd been part of the process. "State schools mostly," Kyle said. "Maybe Hudson University if the financial aid comes through." "Hudson's a good school," Derek said. "Expensive though, like 40 grand a year." "Yeah, well," Kira's voice turned bitter. "Mom's teacher salary isn't cutting it anymore. Not with inflation. We're looking at massive loans." My hand stilled on the knife I was using to chop vegetables. I've been thinking about that, Derek said. Maybe it's time I stepped up. Financially, I mean. Your mother's done her best. But teachers. He trailed off meaningfully. We know, Kyle said. She works hard, but it's basically a volunteer job that pays a tiny stipend. We're going to ask her to co-sign loans, Kara added. But honestly, Dad, we might need you to pay for college. Like actually pay. Not just promise to help and then flake. Hey now, Derek protested weakly. I've been consistent with support. You missed 4 months last year, Kyle said flatly. Mom covered it, but we saw the past due notices. We know she's drowning. Drowning. I looked around my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd balanced budgets down to the penny, where I'd taught them fractions using measuring cups, where I'd never once mentioned the six-figure bonus I'd received for exceeding district improvement goals. Look, Derek said, I'm doing better now. The wellness center is taking off. I could probably manage $10,000 per kid for college. Per year? Kara asked hopefully. Total, Derek clarified. 20,000 split between you is significant. Dad, textbooks alone cost more than that, Kyle said. We're talking about $300,000 in student loans between us. Mom's teacher retirement won't even cover the interest. Maybe she should have thought about that before becoming a teacher, Derek said. I told her years ago to go into tech or business. But no, she had to follow her passion. I set down the knife completely, my hands shaking with anger. We're not blaming Mom, Kara said quickly. She's amazing, she can't help being poor. Can't help being poor. We've already started looking at loan options, Kyle continued. We'll need her to co-sign since we have no credit. It'll probably tank her credit score, but what choice do we have? Your mother's credit is probably already shot, Derek said knowingly. Single teacher income, she's probably maxed out on cards just keeping you fed. My credit score was 820. I'd never missed a payment in my life. We were thinking, Kara said carefully, maybe you could talk to her. About being realistic? She keeps saying she'll figure it out for college, but we know there's nothing to figure out. She needs to accept that we'll be in debt and just support us emotionally or whatever. I'll talk to her, Derek promised. Maybe this weekend. Help her see reason about your futures. They hung up after more promises from Derek about being there and making things right. I heard the twins go back to their homework, casually dissecting my financial life like it was a math problem with an obvious answer, Mom equals poor. I finished making dinner in silence, my mind spinning. 6 months of keeping my promotion quiet. 6 months of letting them believe we were still struggling. I thought I was teaching them values, but maybe I just taught them to be ashamed of me. Dinner's ready, I called out. They came to the table, still discussing loan applications. I served the pasta quietly, watching my children, my brilliant, ambitious children who thought their mother was a financial failure. Mom, Kara said between bites, we need to talk about college financing. Oh, I kept my voice neutral. We've been looking at loans, Kyle said. With our grades, we can get into good schools. But the costs. We'll need you to co-sign, Kara added. I know it's a lot to ask, but how much are we talking about? I asked. They exchanged glances. Probably about $150,000 each, Kyle said. Over 4 years. $300,000 total, I repeated. That's a lot of debt. We know, Kara said gently, like she was breaking bad news to me. But with your teacher's salary, there's no other option. We've accepted it. Have you? I set down my fork. Tell me, what do you think my teacher's salary is? I don't know, Kyle shrugged. Like $40,000? Maybe $45,000 with your experience, Kara added generously. I see. I stood up. Wait here. I went to my home office, what they still called Mom's grading cave, and pulled out a folder. 6 months of bank statements, the offer letter I'd never shown them, the district newsletter announcing my appointment that they'd never bothered to read. I returned to the dining room and placed the folder on the table. What's this? Kyle asked. Open it. Kara pulled out the first bank statement. Her eyes widened at the balance. $247,000. Mom, this has to be an error. Keep reading, I said. Kyle grabbed the offer letter. Superintendent of Schools, annual salary. This can't be right. $400,000. Kira's voice cracked. Mom, is this real? As of 6 months ago, yes. They stared at me, then at each other, then back at the papers. But, but you're a teacher, Kyle said weakly. I was a teacher. Now I run the entire district. 42 schools, 8,000 students, 600 teachers. I sat back down. But you're right. My little teacher salary probably isn't cutting it. Mom, Kira whispered. We told Dad that I was drowning, that I couldn't help being poor, that you needed him to pay because I'm financially useless. I kept my voice calm. Yes, I heard. Kyle's face was red. We didn't mean. You meant every word, I interrupted. And why wouldn't you? I've let you believe we were struggling. That was my choice. But hearing you dismiss my entire career, my education, my capabilities because you assumed teacher equals poor. That was enlightening. We're sorry, Kara said, tears forming. We just assumed. You assumed that because I chose to teach, I chose poverty. That passion and financial success can't coexist. That your mother, who raised you alone, kept you fed and clothed and loved, must be drowning because she's just a teacher. How long have you been saving? Kyle asked quietly. 6 months. Your college funds are fully funded. Both of you. Any school you can get into, I can afford. But you didn't tell us, Kira accused. You let us worry. Did you worry? I asked. Or did you just pity me? There's a difference. Silence stretched between us. For 18 years, I continued, I've shown you that teachers matter. That education changes lives. That service to others is noble. But the moment you thought I couldn't pay for your college, all of that disappeared. I became poor mom with her little teacher salary. That's not fair, Kyle protested. We respect what you do. Do you? Then why was your first instinct to call your father and plan around me instead of talking to me? Neither answered. I have a PhD in education leadership, I said. I've published papers on systemic reform. I've transformed failing schools into success stories. But you never asked about any of that. You saw teacher and stopped looking. We're sorry, Kira said again, meaning it this time. Everyone says teachers don't make money. Most don't, I agreed. But I didn't stay in a classroom. I kept learning, growing, advancing. Just like I've always told you to do, but you were too busy feeling sorry for me to notice. I pulled out 2 more pieces of paper. These are your college accounts. $200,000 each. Enough for any school, plus graduate school if you choose. No loans needed. They stared at the numbers in shock. Mom, Kyle's voice broke. We don't deserve this. Not after. You're my children. Of course you deserve it. I softened my tone. But I hope you've learned something tonight. Never underestimate teachers, Kira offered weakly. Never underestimate anyone, I corrected. The janitor at your school might own rental properties. The bus driver might be a day trader. The cafeteria worker might have a master's degree. You assumed my worth based on my job title, not my capabilities. What about Dad? Kyle asked. He thinks. Your father can think whatever he wants. He chose to leave and contribute the bare minimum. I chose to stay and build something. The results speak for themselves. We finished dinner in contemplative silence. Later, I heard them on the phone with Derek, explaining the situation. His disbelief was audible even from my room. That's impossible, he kept saying. Janet's a teacher. Teachers don't make that kind of money. Mom's not just a teacher anymore, Dad, Kira said firmly. She's the superintendent. She runs everything. But she never said anything when I offered $20,000. Because she didn't need your money, Kyle said. She never did. She was testing us, and we failed. The next few weeks were awkward. The twins tiptoed around me, suddenly interested in my work, my responsibilities, my achievements. They read every article about my appointment, watched school board meetings online, asked questions about educational policy. Is it too late? Kira asked one evening. To actually know you. It's never too late, I assured her. But know me as I am, not as you assumed I was. They both chose Hudson University in the end, not for the prestige, but for the education program. They wanted to understand what I built my life on. Kyle switched his major from business to educational technology. Kira chose educational psychology. We want to understand, Kyle explained, how you saw so much in a career everyone else dismisses. Because I didn't just teach subjects, I said. I taught students, and every student was succeeded because of something I did. That was worth more than any salary. But the salary doesn't hurt, Kira added with a small smile. No, I laughed. It certainly doesn't. At graduation, they both thanked me in their speeches, not for paying for college, but for showing them that success isn't measured in dollars alone. That respect isn't earned by titles but by impact. That their mother, who they pitied for her little teacher salary, had quietly become one of the most powerful educators in the state. Derek attended the ceremony, still stunned by the transformation in his children's perspective. And mine. You could have told me, he said afterward. About the promotion. I would have. What? Respected me more? Contributed more? Been a better father? I shook my head. Respect shouldn't be conditional on income, Derek. That's the lesson here. He left quickly after that, probably to tell his yoga instructor wife about his superintendent ex-wife. I didn't care. I have my children, my educated, humbled, aware children, and a career that mattered. The twins are in their second year at Hudson now. They call regularly, not for money, but for advice. They volunteer at local schools, tutor struggling students, understand finally that education is both a passion and a profession. Last week, Kira sent me a photo from her educational policy class. On the board, her professor had written, Case Study, Superintendent Janet Morrison's Riverside Reform Model. They're studying you, Mom, her text read. My professor says you're revolutionizing district management. My classmates don't believe you're my mom. Tell them I'm just a teacher, I replied, one who never stopped learning. She sent back a heart emoji and one more message. Teacher salary or not, you're the richest person I know. Finally, they understood. Success isn't about the size of your paycheck, though mine is quite comfortable now. It's about the size of your impact, and teachers, we impact the future, one student at a time. Even when those students are our own children, learning the hardest lesson of all, never underestimate someone who dedicates their life to others. We might just surprise you, especially when college tuition bills come due.